Hey Joseph, hey Raul, hey Alex. We are getting started right now.
Howdy.
Okay, I believe we're live. Here is the agenda. No surprises. Okay, testing and releases. We released v0.12.0 last week. This took me a lot longer than I thought it would. I apologize for any delay there. Upgraded BLS to latest IETF standard. Some fixed rewards and penalties, as well as a slight rewards and penalties modification to ensure that if you are performing optimally during a leak, you don't lose any money, as was intended. Other than that, some networking changes based off of kind of continued feedback loop with the nets and clients. I know y'all are working on this. Let me know if you have any issues. I hope there's a big refactor in the rewards and penalties and how they are tested in a much more granular fashion. We found some bugs in Serenity when Proto was updating that. I do think that we have much better coverage at this point, so hopefully we won't see any rewards and penalties forks. But if we do, we'll handle it. Okay, so that we also have Alex's from TXRX fork choice tests. I did not end up getting those into the v0.12 release, but they're at the top of my list to get into a v0.12.1, and so those are coming. They look good. It's just a matter of figuring out the proper way to combine this like external repo with the testing flow, release vectors. So that's coming. I don't have a good update on Stethoscope, the network testing that was being worked on. Proto, do you have any updates there?
No big updates really. We have these two different paths. So rumor on the tooling for network testing, which you can already use more ad hoc, and then the stethoscope project, which tries to tie it together into test vectors and integrated clients. This is like a bigger effort that will take some more time.
Okay. I'm hoping we can get something out to y'all relatively soon. I know there was a number of last-minute bugs, some around Genesis and some around some just basic networking prior to the WITI launch, which we can talk about in a minute, a couple days ago. So any type of this network testing might aid. Oh, hey, Lakshman. just wanted to know status of Cestoscope, if there's any progress there, and what we might expect if you are there. All right. Well, we'll get. Oh, hey.
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 Hello. Sorry, I think my mic.
We can hear you now.
Okay. Not much of an update. I've been on vacation for the last week and a half or so. Yeah, nothing much to update on past the last networking call update.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I was saying that we did run into some last minute bugs launching the Witty testnet, so getting some of these test figures out relatively soon would be, I think, really useful. But thank you. Yeah, we can talk offline.
Cool.
Other testing and release updates or any questions about the release? Great. I'm going to swap client updates and testnets and go ahead and let Afri talk about Witty and others to bring up any questions or comments about testnets and stuff.
Okay, sure. I keep it short. We did a couple of attempts to relaunch the Schlesi testnet. The Schlesi testnet revealed a couple of issues and eventually lost finality. And I have shut down my last validator today, so the Schlesi testnet is officially dead now. And I did a couple of attempts to relaunch a new testnet. The difference between Witty and Schlesi is that we have now 3 clients instead of 2 clients in Genesis. So this was yet another dimension more difficult to launch. So this is Teku, Lighthouse, and Prism in Genesis with each 2 validators. In the beginning, we had some hiccups. Once again, we had a different Genesis time for 2 clients. And in the end, we figured it out, and we had this launch yesterday night, I believe. We even had to deploy a last-minute hotfix on one of the clients, but in the end, we have almost perfect liveliness on the network, and yeah, we have this network up now, and people are encouraged to break it. And yeah, that's the state of Witty as of today.
Yeah, cool. I think client teams are generally curious as to the plan in the coming weeks and months. I would think maybe you and I can work on at least just some bullet points on what the plan is, I guess, with testnet restarts, doing larger testnets, and that kind of stuff before we do a larger public launch.
Yeah, so I can. So I envision that we try to launch as many testnets as possible whenever we see a reason to launch a new testnet, either because the old one fails or we have a new version of the spec, or we can let's have rather more small and fast failing testnets before going into the more stabilized fast phase. Sorry.
Right. One item came up. If anyone wants to take a look here, it's adding the ability to tune what time of day Genesis happens. If Afri continues to launch testnets with mainnet configuration, it will happen at 2 a.m. constantly at his end. I know, Australia, that you're really happy that it happens at 2 a.m. every time, but for the sanity of Afri, we might consider adjusting it. Take a look at that issue. But yeah, we'll get some more concrete notes out on the testnet trajectory, or at least the tentative testnet trajectory. That was alliteration. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts on this before we move on? Thank you, Afri. It was a heroic last-minute effort on your end and many of the client teams to get it working, but it looks good now. Okay, great. Client updates. We will start with Lodestar.
Hey all. So past few weeks, let's see. We published a new version of our BLS library that uses the updated Harumi code compiled to WASM. So hopefully, if you needed that, it's available. And now we're basically just going through the 0.12 updates, working on updating Gossip Sub as well to v1.1. And I guess I'd be kind of curious to hear if everyone else is working on that Gossip Sub issue as well. But yeah, that's basically it for us.
Yeah, and I know Age has been looking into it. We can talk about that a little bit after in the networking section if people want to share some notes on that. Thanks, Gaiman. Nimbus.
Hi. So on the networking side, we have been investigating and solved interrupt issues with Lighthouse. We had protobuf parsing issues. We published this morning, we updated the multinet script in the multinet repo so that you can create a network with a split of 50-50 Lighthouse and Nimbus validators to investigate more easily interrupt issues. We also add snappy fixes. And we also realized that Gossip Sub assumes that we can validate an attestation immediately when we receive it, but in reality, we have to wait for the block to be available, and sometimes attestations are received before the blocks. Otherwise, regarding testnets, we have make witty added to the makefile, so now you can connect to witty easily. And we were investigating syncing bug in Schlessie, but we are moving to witty to investigate that. And also, one of our testnet investigation is regarding the few peers issue where Nimbus only had a couple of peers while syncing compared to other clients. On the core spec side, we have the BRS changes merged in our crypto backend, and we have a toggle, so we can now switch between v0.11.3 or v0.12 for testnet or fuzzing purposes. And we had at the beginning of the week, we received all the audit proposals from auditing firms. So we are right now selecting vendors for our audit. And that's all.
Nice. Exciting. And does Nimbus currently run into the same syncing bug on Witty?
I don't know yet because we started to use Witty just this morning. So,
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
But basically, the syncing, one of the syncing bug is that at the when we are within the last 100 blocks, we change syncing algorithm, and
right.
And we stay behind.
Got it. Okay, Teku.
Hey, that's me. So we've started doing official releases of Teco every 2 weeks with release notes. Teco's been updated with options to run on the new Woody testnet. With respect to v0.12, the Gossip Sub v1.1 JVM libp2p implementation is almost done, and the BLS updates are under review. Our open API schemas have been updated to work more easily with code generation tools. We've updated our ETH1 data handling logic so that we no longer need to query for world state data. So that means we can run against fast synced ETH1 nodes without worrying about missing world state. We've added peer filtering based on ENR fields. There's some ongoing work to improve attestation processing. and we fixed some JVM libp2p issues related to handling large stream packets. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you. And Prism.
Hey guys, Ro from Prism here. Yeah, we are complete with 0.12. We've been running test nets. So far, so good. Seeing 100% participation on different testnet configurations for v0.12. So hopefully planning a testnet restart for Topaz with that config version. Working next on releasing a lot of memory improvement features into master. So we have a lot of experimental features that have different degrees of stability that we're trying to get really solid and make those become defaults. Also working on optimized attestation aggregation. Our slasher has been making good progress. It's been playing a lot nicer with beacon nodes. So previously it would overwhelm beacon nodes, make it difficult for them to also handle validators. But now things are getting better on that front. Fuss testing is going well. And our audit from QuantSnap is in progress. It's also going pretty well. So we're excited to see some preliminary results from the audits. Yeah, that's it from us.
Cool. Do you know the range of history that you can find slashable attestations with Slasher? I knew it was on the order of a few days. I was wondering if that's longer now. Just curious.
Yeah, so we've been working a lot on the look back. We're able to do historical detection just fine. So we're able to just go all the way back from Genesis and really find slashable offenses. So that's been going pretty well. We're actually finding some trouble with real-time detection, dealing with kind of making sure we get all the right attestations from the beacon nodes and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But historical detection has been going really well.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Lighthouse.
Hey everyone. So we've on our consensus code, we've started an audit with Trail of Bits. So we've got the audits kind of being done in two parts, which is the consensus code and then the networking code. We've delayed the networking code because we still need to kind of finish some of the underlying protocols and hardnet before we actually get an audit of it. So that's going to be a little bit delayed. We've been doing a lot of debugging with the WIDI testnet launch, expanding some of our APIs to kind of help with some of the metrics and logging in Lighthouse. With the WIDI testnet, we found that our disk v5 implementation is chewing heaps of CPU. So we've started kind of like a structural rewrite of the Rust disk v5 implementation to fix that. We've started working on Rust Gossip Sub 1.1. We're still working on like an internal peer reputation system and updating to version 12. That's pretty much it from us.
A quick question on the Rust libp2p stuff. Like, how much has it diverged between your branch basically and I guess Parity's libp2p?
Yeah, so we were maintaining our own fork and using that because it had Gossip Sub fixes and Gossip Sub changes, as well as disk v5. So one of the issues with disk v5 is that it was architected to be built inside of libp2p. So what we've done recently is ripped out disk v5, so it's now like its own standalone thing, which allows us to kind of rebuild it to be more concurrent, use more CPU cores, and it'll be a bit nicer. So it's not actually going to be put into libp2p anymore. So we've ripped that out. And all the Gossip Sub stuff has been merged down into master, apart from the new Gossip Sub 1.1, which is still being developed. So fundamentally at the moment, Lighthouse uses the official libp2p Rust libp2p. Everything on master from that. Anything else we've used is either in its own repo or something or somewhere else. So we don't diverge at all, is the answer.
That's good news, because we've been thinking which one's to target for basic Rust intro testing.
Yeah, just use the official one.
Cool. Trinity.
Hey everyone. Let's see. The big thing is we've added a full-time contributor. I think Grant might be on the call. So that's exciting to help move things along a little faster. The latest sort of code update is we merged in a big networking PR to implement the latest libp2p protocols. So that was a bunch of bug fixes to pilot P2P itself, and then general improvements to stability, and then all the gossip sub and the sort of the request response protocols there. The next step will be working to sync Witty, along with some spec updates to get up to version 11.3, and then looking to version 12.
Cool. Thank you. And from Nethermind, Slides built code for attestations, and this is now pending merge into master. Tomas has built the code for connecting with database, the Merkle trees. Previously, we were only testing using memory. Tomas is also testing multiple validator onboarding soon with the new Merkle tree code. So I think this is like remarkable, Merkle-backed state and other items. They're still updating some code for v0.11, moving a junior dev full-time at Eth2 to ensure that tests are running properly. And they're expanding the Mothra wrappers for C# to have better control over the connections. They have a senior dev who has experience in both Rust and C#, so may be looking at the improvements in June. Tomas is working on adding Nethermind Eth1 to Nethermind Eth2 connectivity for whole flow, but probably won't be able to join Witty before the end of June. We'll see, maybe. Thank you, Tomas. Doing God's work on the 1559 call. Cool. Great, so we will move on to research updates. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about?
We'll go for
Great.
TXRX. So this past, since we met last time, Dimitri has completed 2 write-ups on Discovery v5. The first one is called Comparing Discovery Advertisement Features for Efficiency in Our Attributes and Topic Advertisement. Real sexy titles. Discovery, Peer, Advertisement, Efficiency Analysis. Great write-ups that cover and simulate some of the efficiencies and inefficiencies of Discovery v5. And those, one of them's an ETH research post, the other one's a HackMD, probably going to be an ETH research post coming soon for that, but the HackMD is available for y'all. Last time I misspoke about OnTall. Alex is developing OnTall, which is a PySpec transpiler. It's not used for transpiling fork choice tests, but he is working on fork choice tests as well, like separate from that effort. And so he's been moving on that. It's been transpiling into Kotlin code. So it's taking the PySpec and transpiling that, and Mikhail is integrating that transpiled OnTall Kotlin code into Teku in our TXRX repo, not into the Teku master, right, or Wharf branch. Johnny's done some testnet analysis. He had like a pretty entertaining tweet that shows kind of like some of the breakdown of the Topaz network. And he's kind of created a prototype tool for testnet analysis that is auto-generated with the CI job. So yeah, that's all based around the Perkle and network monitor work he's been doing. And right now, we're working on upgrading the network agent to Age Manning's Disk v5 code so that the crawl will be more efficient. And we also released a write-up on probabilistic cross-shard transaction simulation. And it shows some interesting results on the effects of network throughput. I'll drop a link to that in the Zoom chat. The research for that is going to keep going, but we're going to analyze some ETH1 data, which we're in process of doing to make the simulations for cross-shard transactions more realistic and kind of moving towards working on an alpha cross shard spec in the next coming weeks. That's it. I'll drop a link for that.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. I'll go next. So Quilt has been working on exploring account abstraction, and so this has been there's kind of explained this in the past, but it's kind of twofold. One, we're doing the work on Geth right now, and one of the things is that one, we'd like to get this into ETH1 if it doesn't move forward on ETH1 because the changes are too heavy. The idea is to bring this as one of the guiding structures of the account model that is built for ETH2 as a whole. And so we've been doing this with respect to ETH1 to get some tangible data on what we currently have. So right now we are actually integrating all the pieces, and we should have a basic MVP, the basic MVP that Vitalik had spec'd out finished pretty soon. So that's within the next couple weeks, next week or two. And part of that too is we've done work on building a tool to DOS the design, so we can begin looking at how the transaction pool or mempool, if we explore an abstraction, can stand defensible in regards to some of the new constraints that are added with that. So that's where we're at.
Great, thanks, Will.
If there's nobody else,
yeah, please.
I would also give some update from the EWASM team. There would be, I think, two relevant updates I can give to ETH2. So we continued a bit of work on the ETH1X 64. And the next step there is to look into yanking. And what we have done so far is we tried implementing yanking as a layer 2 solution on top of the ETH1X 64 variant 1. So what that means is on the sender side, the contract itself would serialize itself because it can read its own storage and would send all that data through the receipt model. And on the receiving side, there would be a need for a factory, which then can create this contract and set the storage, recreate the storage. The reason we did this, we wanted to see whether there's a need for a protocol level support for yanking. And it seems that if we indeed want to have yanking to be useful, then there is a need for protocol support because there's so many overheads. One of the main overheads here, apart from the need to read the storage one by one in EVM, is that one needs to serialize everything into memory, keep it in memory, and then save it as a receipt. And memory is quite expensive on EVM. Yeah, we do plan to prototype a protocol level yanking support and then publish this variant 2, which talks about yanking. And then another piece of work we have been looking into is regarding caching. So this is basically on phase 2. If there would be some kind of a standard witness format, then there could be a potential to introduce what we call a shard committee cache, where there would be a cache for the transaction witnesses. So whatever is incoming, there would be a short-lived cache, a few epochs long cache, which would reduce the transaction witness size. But the block witness included in the shard blocks, those won't be bothered by the cache. Those would be always full witnesses. So that means the impact of this caching would be restricted to block proposers, and it wouldn't affect anyone outside of that, especially nobody on the beacon level.
Right, and specifically transaction broadcasting and or potential, like if there was a third party providing a block to them.
Yeah, I think only transaction processing. So we had just a rough idea sketched out, and we bugged Danny to give some feedback, and we got some great feedback from Danny, but we haven't finished updating this rough idea to make it more useful based on that feedback. But we do plan to share it soon. Yeah, these are the two things I can mention.
Cool. Yeah. That does look like based off of my reading, an effective place to put a cache. I guess my main question would be the overall reduction in bandwidth that we might achieve through it, which I guess with some experimentation we can figure out.
Yeah. Also, after this discussion, we also realized that maybe this idea could be applied in some different fashion to Eth2.0 or stateless Ethereum. So probably we can also look into that.
Cool. Thank you. On the spec side, now that V012 is done, Xiaowei, myself, and a couple others on our team are spending a lot of time making sure that phase 1 is well tested, well structured, and has all the components that you need to do prototypes and implementation. These includes finishing the work in progress validator doc, adding much more test coverage and working through any bugs so you don't have to work through them, and even building out the base of the network spec. So this is top priority on our team and stuff you're going to see a lot of movement on very soon. Cool. Any other research updates? Great. Next is networking. We haven't had networking call in a little bit. Might consider doing one soon if there is demand. As Cayman mentioned, there's a few people working on a V11 implementations of Gossip Sub. Is there any questions anyone had to pose to the group, or any particular learnings or gotchas that were run into that are worth sharing?
I guess the question to decide is whether we should support 1.0 at all. Like, even though in theory they're compatible, right? The current networking spec says 1.0, for example.
Does it? I can't remember if I put a must or may on there.
All right, last week it did. Mike said it in poll.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think if anything, there's an allowance for. Oh yeah, clients must support Gossip Sub V1, including the V11 extension, because V11 is really just additional components on top. So the intention was to write it in such a way that you must support this. I can clarify that if there's any confusion in the way it was written. For the time being, I think we're going to see, at least on the test nets for the next few weeks, a mix, which is a reasonable test. But there's no need, I think, to go to production without it.
Now, you know what? Now that I pulled, I see it as well.
Yeah, there could be a second must in there that would make it very clear. But yeah, based on the testing results by Protocol Labs, it's a no-brainer to require it. Yeah, cool. Use the networking chat in the Discord, or one-on-one chats if you have questions and things as it comes up. David from Protocol Labs is also very willing to help if there's any issues on the V11 upgrade. Does anyone have V11 running on testnets? Prism, I guess, would be the only one. Do y'all have that integrated on the current WIDI? If you don't know, then just let me know after and we can talk about it. I'm just curious. Okay. Any other networking items?
I can go.
Yes.
So we've been discussing a change to the this v5 wire protocol on Discord, and I made a very detailed proposal for it. The idea is to redo the outer layer wire encoding one last time before finalizing the spec, basically. So that's one thing. I have received a lot of thumbs up on this proposal, but we haven't really made a decision yet. So I would like to get a decision in pretty soon, because I kind of want to release the final version sort of the initial final version of the spec. So if everyone could please state their opinion one more time, or just let's just come to a decision there. And then the other thing is that I've been looking into the proposal from the, what's his name again? I keep forgetting it. It's Zilm on GitHub, but I always forget his real name. It was already linked by Joseph earlier. And we are still sort of discussing things out there. So the mechanism that he proposed, based on basically reading Dimitri, exactly, reading other nodes, Kademlia tables using a special operation which can sort of pre-filter the nodes on the server side. The proposal is kind of a short-term gain, I guess, but we still need to answer the fundamental question whether this is really a sound proposal or not. So one thing that I'm still worried about there with this proposal is that it cannot give there's an issue with it, because it cannot really give you, you cannot find 100% of nodes with this. You can only find a certain percentage of the network, and that percentage grows lower the larger the network gets, which is kind of I don't know, it's very efficient and when it works, but it's not theoretically sound, at least not 100%. So we're still trying to figure out how to move forward, or how we can turn this into a sound proposal.
Got it. Thanks, Felix. One is a blocker on this wire protocol the discussion of Quick.
Yeah, that's one of the things right now where basically, I heard that basically it's going to have there's this idea to reuse the Quick packet format, and I haven't heard back. So I don't know if this discussion is still ongoing, or if or not.
Yeah, we're investigating it. We should get back to you tomorrow at latest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in a super big hurry. It's more I just kind of want to make a decision on how to move forward with the basic wire protocol this week, because I still need to update the actual spec with all the changes and track the implementation and so on. So it's really only the first step now, and I kind of want to. But thanks.
Yeah, we're kind of reading the Quick spec right now to figure out whether it's feasible.
So one of the main reasons we don't have Quick supported in implementations, all implementations of libp2p right now, and in the Eth2 networking spec is, at least last we checked, TLS 1.3 support there's not a lot of widespread TLS 1.3 support across many different languages. And so that is something that we're interested in integrating into the P2P spec over time, but that was the main blocker, was the TLS 1.3. So that might be a similar issue with requiring Quick on the discovery today.
So it's not really that, the plan is not, as far as I understand, to run the discovery over Quick, because the quick does way too much for that. It's more like to basically encode the discovery packets so they look like quick packets. So basically masquerade the discovery traffic as quick, because it would mean that we don't have to worry so much about it getting, I don't know, blocked by a firewall or something. Although I still think that like this whole firewall discussion is a little bit of a, yeah, I'm not really sure what to think about it, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, understood.
I have one more thing though. So we are starting to work now in the Geth team on a sort of official like test suite for the discovery. And I'm hoping we'll have it done in like 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll have like a basic sort of test suite that you can run against like any client to see if it, like to cover some common scenarios, because we've already seen some implementation issues in the current testnet.
That'd be badass.
I've got two questions. The first one is, there were other changes that you were talking about a while ago. One was, if I recall correctly, in the find nodes request, instead of doing like multiple requests to get all the buckets, just to group them and just have like multiple distances in the find node request. Is that still on the table?
Yes. So the changes that are coming to the final version are going to be, one sec, I can give you the list real quick. So the idea is that in the final initial version, whatever we want to call it, like version 1, like 5.1 or whatever, we're going to have a complete description of the session cache. There's going to be a change to the version number, which will be version number 1 instead of 5. There will be this multi-distance find node request. We will have the connection pre-negotiation request. For now, it is called talk rec. This thing is totally like, if you don't use it, it's basically gonna be 5 lines to implement. Like it's not a big change, but we need it for another protocol, so that's why it's gonna come in. The topic discovery stuff is gonna be marked as a draft in the spec still, but everything else is not gonna be a draft anymore. And we're gonna have the new encoding, and that's pretty much it. Like, these are the planned changes.
Okay. From what I've seen, I think a lot of people are on board. So it sounds like we should just make a PR to the Eth2 specs to match that version number, as to that's the disk v5 that we're using.
Yeah. So basically, I will. Yeah. Sorry, what?
Yeah. The other question that I had, I don't want to kind of derail you, is if Eth1's moving across to disk v5, are you in Eth1? Are they going to be, in order to connect peers to peer, using ENRs? So I know that we've had this discussion, but ENRs are kind of potentially causing a bit of havoc in usability. So the question is, in Eth1, in order to connect to Eth1 nodes, if you're using disk v5, do you use ENRs?
So you mean as in typing in ENRs on the command line?
No,
or what?
Setting up boot nodes, or if I have one node, I want to connect one node to another node.
Oh, I see. Oh yeah, that discussion. So I mean, in general, I know that the ENR is not the most like readable format for humans. That's totally true. At the moment, we mostly just use the DNS-based ENR distribution mechanism that we have for bootstrapping, and that basically means that like we just have a reference to that DNS name and its public key in the source code, and then basically the boot nodes and stuff are just fetched via DNS. And when we will move to the disk v5, basically it's gonna be the same. I mean, we're definitely gonna have we're definitely gonna keep the DNS. We're gonna probably gonna set up a new DNS tree for the v5 to find the entry points. In general, you can still use the old like enode URL format, which is great but inflexible. And you can use the ENR text form if you want. But I know that it's not the most convenient if you want to just like type something in.
Yeah. So fundamentally, my question is just that you will be using ENRs fundamentally.
Yes. So we are using ENRs now with the version 4 even.
Yeah. So there's
So
no
even
trick
with
where you connect via just like an IP address and then download the ENR. You actually have to type. You have to actually have the ENR, right?
Well, there is a way to like connect if you have the public key and the IP address and the port, and that's the enode URL format. But we could make another version of that, or just support multi-addr or something if you need a readable representation.
Yeah, and they're unsigned, correct?
Yes, I mean they can't be signed. Like that's
But
the
you
thing.
have the
Like
pub
you
key.
Yeah, they have the pub key, but they are not signed. And so the thing about this is like the ENR is not the greatest when it comes to, you know, like sysadmin stuff, because they are signed. You cannot change the content of the ENR ever. This is like very nice for certain things, and it's definitely good when there's machines talking to each other. But if you just want to type in the IP address, then you can't do that. And I know that, and I know there was this discussion, and it can be annoying if you have to, yeah. So, but my recommendation for Eth2 would be to go with a multi-addr, because you are already kind of using that anyways. And it has a text representation as well. So long term, we should probably all agree on multi-addr as the readable format. But when it comes to pasting nodes into code or something, I would still go with the ENR, because it allows you to basically prove to everyone else also that you're not cheating and this node is really who it is. And
Right.
they gave you this info. And
So is there anything that we actually need to change on the spec to support enode or multi-addr for initial connection? As in, once you connect and you know the pub key, they're going to give you their updated ENR anyway.
I don't think you need to change anything in the spec, because the spec doesn't say that the client has to, you know, provide a way to enter an ENR to connect. This is totally up to the clients,
right?
I think, to make that.
Okay, so a standard multi-addr that ensures that it
However
has
they
the
make
pub
that
key
convenient.
satisfies our requirements.
Yeah, you must have the public key. I am also thinking about, but this is more like a long-term item, and I don't want to hold up the call too long. I am thinking about adding an ENR identity scheme using ED25519 keys, because it's going to be much faster during the handshake. So if anyone's interested to talk about that, then you just like hit me up.
Got it.
Within Nimbus, we actually tried to implement the initial version of Discovery v5 to accept both multi-address and enode records, but this proved to be too difficult. It's a little bit hard for me to cite the reasons, but you just need to have the ENR, the signed ENR record of all the nodes you are talking with. You need them in order to reply to some of the messages in the protocol.
Yeah,
so
you cannot.
Yeah.
So it's true. When you implement the protocol, you need to support ENR. You cannot, you know, skip on the ENR implementation. But the discussion we had is more like when you are entering a node address on the command line or something. It's probably more convenient to put that as a.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm talking about as well. But what I need, what I envision here is that perhaps it would be necessary when you connect to the Bootstrap node to ask it about its own ENR record, which will be signed. Because if you don't know the signed ENR record of any node you are talking with, you run into these issues that you cannot reply properly to some of the messages. So what I'm saying is that if you connect with multi-addr or enode, you should be able to ask the other node to present a valid ENR record.
Right. Does this not already happen?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the reason as well. I agree with you. I think I tried to do it as well. Like off the top of my head, we send like a random packet, and then responding to, I think responding to the who are you need to know their ENR at some point. That's the signed version, and you run into trouble.
Well, you don't need to. You don't really need to know theirs. It's more like you need to send yours.
Well, I guess we can explore this in an issue because our
Yeah, that would be very
developer.
interesting. Yeah. If there's any problem in the spec, basically preventing you from using the multi-adder to for the initial connection, then we should fix.
Yep. Cool. We'll check that out in the next day or so. And again, that multi-adder must have the pub key associated with their discovery identity. Okay, cool. Anything else here? New design goal, make sure that we can have a multi-adder on the command line to initiate these conversations on discovery. Avery will be very happy. Okay, any other networking items? Cool. General spec discussion. I know y'all are working on V012. Please don't hesitate to reach out on issues or in direct conversation if you have any issues here. But any other questions or comments here? Okay, great. General open discussion. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Cool. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Excellent work on all the test network, and talk to you all very soon. Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.